Hello again and welcome to Walker Tea Review. If this is your first time to join us, I'm Jason Walker and we come together to kind of tell the story of teas. There's so many teas out there, lots of them to choose from, and there's always the question of which one's the best one, or how do I choose a right tea. And then once I get it, how do I make sure that I prepare it properly so I get the best taste out of it as possible. And we're going to be looking at a tea today. This is a Japanese green tea. The new harvest of Japanese greens is most likely on its way. On its way meaning on a shipment, either by air or by slower boat shipment, cargo ship type, from Japan right now. So this is going to be a tea from a previous year, last year most likely. We'll talk a little bit about those details in just a moment. But got my basic standard tea tasting equipment, which I encourage you to go out and get some for yourself, because it really allows you to kind of develop a skill. And there's a bit of a little bit of skill to finding the right balance of water temperature and water amount and tea amount. So I've got this is a Chinese Gaiwan style. It's not necessarily the first choice for a Japanese tea, but a Gaiwan gives us a kind of standard. It gives us a reliable, repeatable way to look at teas and compare them across the board. So I've got a teaspoon here, just a regular, cheap, everyday type of teaspoon. And what you see I'm doing here is I'm going to kind of flatten this out so you see that's a pretty hefty amount of tea. It's filling up and spilling over the sides of the teaspoon. Now, you can always kind of compensate. You want to get that right balance, as we said, of tea, leaf, water temperature, and water amount. So this is about a 4-ounce Gaiwan. And my water has just really, you put it in a kettle, electric kettle like this, and it starts to kind of growl. You hear that low grumble sound. You generally want lighter temperatures of water for senchas, which this is a great Japanese green tea. So we're going to pour that slowly in there, let it swirl around, let it kind of saturate and cover over the leaves. And because I don't want a lot of heat, let me set that back over here. Because I don't want a lot of heat to get trapped and kind of cook this, I'm going to leave the lid off actually. And so that allows more heat to rise and escape faster. As we're letting this steep ever so, we're going to try to do this quite briefly. Let me talk about this tea. This is GrandTea's OrganicSencha regular grade, found on GrandTea's website, 50 grams for $6. We do note that this is sourced from Japan. There's not a lot of details exactly where in Japan, but we do know this is an organic tea that was certified organic by the JAS, which is a Japanese agricultural certification, and EcoCert, which is a European certification for organics. Okay, so as we said, briefly, don't want to leave that in there too long. We're going to pour this and then go back and talk a little bit about our dry leaf, or at least that's the goal. So pouring with a Gaiwan, you do want your lid to kind of lean over to the side. Your middle finger and thumb go on the rim of the bowl. Your index finger holds the lid in place to keep those little bits of leaf from pouring out. Although we're not 100% successful, we have held back a lot of the leaf. We're tilting back towards ourselves here to get those last few potent drops there. Okay, so that gives us, I'm going to keep the lid on now because I want the aromas to stay in there for just a moment. As we talk about this dry leaf. Okay, just looking to see anything else. OrganicSencha. Two notes that are really coming off the strongest on this tea. There's an asparagus with a bit of the marine aspect. It's like a seaweed note to it as well. Some of them will have a more of a sweet element to them, like and even a tinge of like a lemon kind of zesty smell. This one's lighter on those aspects, almost to the point where the sweet kind of cream spinach that comes with some is also not that present. Although cream spinach I get more off like a gyokuro. Pull out a few of these leaves now, just kind of look at some of them. Now a sencha is usually steamed, goes through a steaming process to preserve its greenness, and then some of the processing like the shaping or the rolling takes place. And when those things happen, you often get finer looking filaments, and that's kind of what you're seeing here. You're getting very small pieces here, anything from a quarter of an inch or less up to, oh, here's some needles that kind of survived and are an inch long. You're getting colors that are, they're not the most vibrant blue-green, but they are still a good, strong, bold emerald green, I would say. So that's a positive in its favor. Let's see. These are not the finest looking, sharpest looking needle type shapes that I've seen, but still nicely wrapped. Yeah, that's about it for the leaf there. Okay. I mean, not the most delicate or refined looking leaf, but not the worst either. Okay. While we still have some heat coming off of this wet leaf, we're going to go ahead and look at that now as well. Let's go ahead and give it a sniff. Okay. Getting a lot of heat notes coming off of this. The marine aspect is coming out. There's a bit of a kind of a sardine note coming off of this as well. Not the sweetest note that I've picked up either. So it's favoring the marine, the sardine type smell. Not, like I said, not much of the sweet vegetable coming off. Although a slight amount, and if it is, as you catch it, as the whiffs kind of cool off, it's a bit of a sweet, fresh asparagus type. So that is in it. That's a component, although very minor component. Let's go to our wet leaf. I'm sorry, our liquor now. You know what? Speaking of wet leaf, let's pull out a few of these. Although there won't be very much to look at. These are portions of leaves. Again, still retaining the emerald green color. Yeah, there's not usually a whole lot to look at as far as your wet leaf of a sencha like this. There's no present evidence of oxidation. There's no red and rust colors there on the edges of the leaves. Pretty consistent in color. You do see a few little pieces of stem here and there coming probably from the bottom of a leaf or leaf set, usually an individual leaf there. Okay. Before this cools off, we do want to get to it though. We've got a color, a shade that's leaning more towards the yellow side of green rather than a vibrant green color. Okay. A bit of a kind of a spinachy type smell coming off the cup here. I get the feeling this was going to have a kind of a astringent metallic type mouthfeel to it. I'm getting the hints of that from the nose. Yeah, quite a bit of astringency there. The mouthfeel, does have a brothiness to it, although it's not as strong as some of the brothiness that I've detected from other senchas. Sweet elements, not so much, not that strong as in comparison with other senchas as well. Still some of the dominant notes, aside from that metallic type feel, it does have a kind of warm sensation to it, and it's giving us kind of like a cooked celery or a cooked asparagus. Those are probably the two notes in there, celery and asparagus, that we're getting. The aftertaste does not become watery per se. It's not a very strong metallic drying feel either. So the aftertaste is on balance, really. Not too strong, not too weak. It does kind of give a sense as your saliva kind of reacts. It does give a nice sweet sense to it in the aftertaste. So when we look at this tea as a whole, one, we talked about the aromas coming off of the dry leaf. Okay, not the full aroma complexity of some others. Wet leaf, pretty standard there, although the aromas coming off of it favored more towards warm, cooked type vegetables as well. Liquor itself got a little bit of age on it. You could tell by the color of it. Then you go to the actual aromas, the celery, the asparagus. They had that cooked type of feel. You didn't get some of the sweeter notes that can come off of a sencha. Didn't get some of the marine notes that can come off of a sencha as well. But when you get to the aftertaste, it does have a tinge of sweetness there at the final notes of it. The body does have some astringency, not the heaviest astringency that I've ever seen. The aftertaste also, and the taste itself, the taste and the aftertaste did give us that vegetal note. The body was not watery, but not the thickest either. So it was mediocre. It was in the middle, I would say. So when you look at this tea as a whole, that's why we would say this tea would get somewhere around the number of, probably an 80. Let's give it an 88. Could have bumped up a little bit higher. Could have been better if it were fresher. So not the most complex, but not the worst and most off-putting. And especially what you want to avoid is the astringency, that metallic feel in the mouth as well. So look at this again. This was GrandTea's OrganicSencha. It was a regular grade, and we looked at it together here at Walker Tea Review.